Assalamu alaikum. Thank you for joining us again here on the message. Thank you for staying with us through the station break. Now, next in the line of prophets that we're going to talk about tonight is the prophet Noah alayhi salam. Now, Noah came 2 generations after Enoch. Now, he was a righteous man who was sent to preach the message of Allah for 950 years, according to the Qur'an. In chapter 4, verse 163, and chapter 26, verse 107, we are told that Noah was upright, honest, and steadfast in faith. The Qur'an supports the biblical story regarding the great flood of Noah and includes a detail that is missing in almost every story of the flood in world religions. That is, that Noah's own son was among those who had rejected Allah's words and was allowed to drown. This is used as another source of proof for the authenticity of the Qur'an. It was after the flood of Noah that mankind was diminished in size and lifespan was shortened, as the long life and great size before had made mankind arrogant and cruel. So as we go on from Noah, in going all the way until the time of Moses, you will see that people were living shorter and shorter and shorter. Within the story of Noah alayhi salam, we have to pause for a moment and look at the concept of idolatry and how it came about. Now, there is an authentic hadith which explains this, as the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, has said, Wadan was a righteous man who was loved by his people. When he died, they withdrew to his grave in the land of Babylonia and were overwhelmed by sadness. When Iblis saw the sorrow caused by his death, he went to the people and said, "Can I make a statue like him? I've seen your sorrow. Could I make a statue that could be put into your meeting place so that you can remember him?" And they said, "Yes." So he made a statue like him. They put it in their meeting place in order to be reminded of him. Then, when Iblis saw their interest in remembering him, he said, "Can I build a statue of him in the home of each one of you so that he will be in everyone's house and you can remember him?" And they agreed. The children then learned about it and saw what they were doing. They also learned about the remembrance of him, that is, the man called Wadan, instead of Allah. So, the first to be worshipped instead of Allah was Wadan by the children, the idol, which they then named Wadan, and that God, so-called God, was passed on from generation to generation. In another hadith, it was written that Salma and Habiba told Allah's Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, about a church called Maria, which they had seen in the land of Abyssinia. Now that is Ethiopia now. They described its beauty and the pictures inside, and he said, "Those are the people who build palaces of worship on the graves of every dead man who was righteous and make therein those kinds of pictures. Those are the worst of creation unto Allah," and that's considered Sahih al-Bukhari. So the very beginning of shirk in this earth, that is, the worship of anything other than Allah or placing another near to Allah for worship alongside him, was begun out of a desire to honor a dead hero. It is for this reason that Muslims do not put statues on graves, nor do we place the image of any living thing inside our mosques or within our path for prayer. It's very simple. Honor and respect can become misplaced, and remembrance can turn into worship that turns a people away from God and toward the dead. How my heart breaks for our Christian neighbors who have put idols in churches and homes, just as those whom Noah was sent to warn. So many of the people of Noah talked to were arrogant, and they refused to turn from the worship of idols. Allah saw that there were so few righteous as the majority of evildoers that he chose to save those who maintained worship of him and the animals who were always in submission to Allah, as they do only what they are created to do. Noah was then instructed to build a great ship to survive the coming flood. The flood of Noah forever changed the face of the earth, Continents moved apart, oceans deepened, and great amounts of lands were swallowed up forever. Forests were destroyed, and deserts were put in their place. And places where once deserts became forests, and entire lands were swallowed for all time. The earth had to change because all that was on it had become evil. It was because of the intense love that Noah had for Allah and how he shared that love with a few others that mankind was spared from destruction. Tradition states that Noah was buried in a village in Iraq named Baalbek. This village is near the location on the agreed upon site for the Tower of Babel and is part of ancient Babylon. I believe, I'm not 100% sure on this because I didn't get a chance to look, but I believe that section is in what's considered to be Kurdish Iraq. So it's also formerly Kurdistan. Now, 5 generations after Noah alayhi salam came the prophet Hud, which is called Eber or Heber in the Bible. The Judaic account of Eber alayhi salam indicates that he refused to participate in the construction of the Tower of Babel, and as such his language was not confused. The legend then says that the Hebrew language was named after him. Eber alayhi salam is the great-great-grandson of Noah, and he lived about 2,000 years before Jesus alayhi salam. Some historical scholars have said that Eber alayhi salam was a man called Hammurabi in Babylonia. And I admit it's true that Hammurabi's code of law is in keeping with the law of Moses alayhi salam and Muhammad alayhi salam. In Islam, we are taught that Hud alayhi salam warned people to turn away from polytheism and back to the worship of one true God. They rejected his instruction, and he warned that Allah would punish them with a great calamity as a sign if they didn't turn from worshipping idols. So Allah sent them a drought for 3 years. But rather than be convinced of the power of Allah and the truth of Hud's message, they decided that they must be immortal to have survived the famine. Hud alayhi salam again appealed to the people to turn away from the worship of idols and turn toward the worship of Allah alone. This time when he rejected, he prayed to Allah to wipe the evildoers away. Allah had destroyed the evildoers of Noah with water, and so Allah wiped out the evildoers of Hud with wind. A great windstorm destroyed the agriculture of the land and choked the people who had blasphemed God. Hud alayhi salam, who is also called Eber, lived for 450 years, and he continued to prophesy and bring the law of Allah to the people in ancient Babylon, stretching from northern Iraq to Yemen. 4 generations then after Hud alayhi salam came Salih alayhi salam, known as Sheila in the Bible. That's Sheila, not Sheila. I know it sounds a little bit like a woman's name, but it's spelled S-H-E-L-A-H for those that are looking it up in the Bible. Although biblical sources have very little to say about him, he was raised up among the Thamud people in the north, central, and western Arabia, just south of Syria. Again, people had turned to idol worship, and again, Allah had sent a messenger to bring people back to the worship of the one true God. People demanded a sign from Allah and told Salih alayhi salam to bring a red woolly she-camel from out of the mountain. Allah, of course, called the camel to come out of the rock, and he gave it as a sign to the people. Salih alayhi salam told the people that they would be permitted to use milk from the she-camel every other day and allow her to drink from the river on the opposite days, but that they could not take milk every day, nor should they ever slaughter the she-camel, or they would be cursed. This was a command from Allah to test people's obedience to law. Because really, that's a simple thing. It's a simple thing to milk a camel one day and let it drink the next. And Allah had decided, apparently, Allah had determined that if these people couldn't follow such a simple instruction, that they were too arrogant, too prideful to really embrace Allah. So, the people forgot. After a few weeks, they lost respect of Allah, they lost respect of this very, very simple law, and they killed the sheep camel. Salih alayhi salam told the people to enjoy 3 days within their homes, during which time they could seek